Welcome to Householders, a conversation about American life as Zen practice. I'm Inga Annie Wade.
And I'm Kyosaku John Mitchell, and we're lay members of the Atlanta Soto Zen Center. We're in person.
Yeah.
We're together without masks on.
That's the first time.
Yeah. I mean, we're still a little far apart, but that's for audio reasons.
Yeah. So I can lean on this little thing back here.
Yeah, we've each got a column to lean on. I feel like we should set the scene.
Yeah. Well, this is the first time we've recorded not only in person but outside.
Yeah, that's true. Though that's something we talked about doing the first time.
Yeah.
We just didn't get around to it.
Yeah.
But also, we were wearing masks hanging out that time. Like, it was a totally different time.
Yes.
And now it feels like we should be out doing stuff again.
Well, we should be, but it's hard to get back into the groove of things.
That's for sure.
You know, in working, I'm trying to find the groove of that, which I think I have, but I'm like, how much can I go out? Not sure yet, and still be productive member of the team. You know?
You mean how late? Or
not even how late.
I
I just with my disability, I have to do a lot of things to keep up with that, and I'm not sure how much I can go out and do other things and still be in balance of that.
How are you feeling with the extra energy expenditure of working?
I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah. I'm surprised. Doing pretty well. How about you? I mean, you're working too, and
yeah, it's a lot. This week has really been a lot. I realized that I'm taking it out. I'm taking the energy out of my relationship with my out of my family, out of my. I mean, the kids are obviously they have a reserve capacity that I have to save, but my wife and I are having lots of short terse, intense, kind of frustrated conversations and a lot of miscommunication and stuff.
Well, that happens sometimes.
It does just happen sometimes, but it also seems pretty clear that I'm spending what I've got on the ramp up at work and not saving enough.
Yeah.
I don't really think of a human being as a battery like that, you know?
No, but for certain. I mean, you know, they have a way to describe it with people with disabilities too. For some reason they compare it to spoons. I'm not really sure where that comes from exactly, but if you have a certain amount of spoons every day and you every time you do something you have to use one of those spoons. So even showering could take up a spoon, and it is true when you have a disability, showering is a whole spoon.
Yeah, it's a hard floor. You got to stand in there.
Yeah, that's why I take baths, but
yeah. Does that replace a spoon in the drawer taking a bath?
So yeah, it can, but also it's still timed though, so I don't know exactly how the math works out.
What the spoon to life ratio is.
Yeah. But anything, making yourself food and whatnot. So if you only have so many, you got to pick and choose what you're gonna spend your spoons on, and yeah, if you spend too many at work, then how are you gonna have enough time for family? It's a tough decision.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting, you know. This is how they get you, right? I'm not comparing my job, which I guess I haven't really. I don't know if I want to talk about what my job is on here.
Yeah.
But the job is very exciting to me.
Yeah.
And it's not like anything I've ever done before either. In that way, it's something that I feel super good about going and doing every day, and that is leading me to go for it. Volunteer to do things, you know, that are above and beyond and stuff. And, you know, I should be doing that with my family.
But, yes, I mean, when you mean, volunteer, you mean, outside of your regular hours?
No, I mean just I'll do that. I can do that. I've got this capacity for that. That doesn't really sound like my job, but I'll do it anyway, you know?
Yeah.
Why not? And it's, you know, part of it is driven by a little bit of imposter syndrome, I feel like, I have to say. Again, without getting too specific on what my job is, it's a job that is a lifelong career thing for most people, a thing that they learned, that they studied in school and they did right out of college, and, you know, it's a thing that people commit their whole lives to. And here I come swinging in at 33 years old,
Mm-hmm.
never having done it before, and I have a little bit of a feeling like I have to justify my presence in order to be accepted or to not get fired or something.
Right.
And so I'm really taking on a lot beyond the sort of minimal requirements, and I feel good about that in a vacuum. But I then get home. This all takes place within 10 feet of my children, of course. But like I come out of my office and sort of feel myself pushed to the absolute limit and can't push any further with the people I live with, the people in my life, my family, and that doesn't feel. It feels like if I'm doing extra at work and not doing extra at home, I should stop doing extra at work so that I can do extra at home.
That seems logical. If we only have another certain amount of energy or spoons or whatever, then yeah, it seems like it's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah, but
Can't
is it really like a quantity like that?
I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's I mean, it's like we're getting into the Zen part, I feel like, because it's not like, it's not a Zen attitude to sort of look at the universe as this infinite bounty of love and energy that we can all tap into. The sort of, like, if I had to describe a new age belief about reality, it would be something like that. Like, you just sort of open yourself up and like infinite power and energy comes through, and you can be a channel for that and do, the Lord's work.
Yeah, but like there's power in the finite.
Yes.
There's like, okay,
yes.
well, and this is, I'm gonna compare this to Star Wars.
Cool.
Well, like in the everybody loves the original Star Wars like series because they had a finite number of resources and they only had practical effects, and they had to just really make do with what they had. And once they got all the resources they wanted, or when George Lucas got all the resources he wanted, he spent it a lot on the like digital and CGI and stuff. And I mean, I look, I'm not gonna debate what's better. I just think that at that time, probably the practical effects looked better, but just because I guess he wanted to be like, get as much as the newness and the extravagance as he can, and you lose something along the way of not having those constraints. Constraints aren't always like a bad thing. I love constraints because I think that's where all the creativity comes from.
That is a true designer's mindset. And I appreciate it very much. It took me a second to realize you were talking about the production of the films and not the universe inside of the films, because there's so I love.
Well, we could go there too.
I think we could. That's what I'm going to say is like, Star Trek versus Star Wars is a cultural point of tension sometimes.
I like them both.
I do too, but think about it. Star Trek is the universe of infinite bounty where you can materialize whatever you want for dessert whenever you want by speaking to the computer. Did I say Star Trek? Star Trek is that one.
I think that's what you said.
I hope that's what I said. Star Wars is the one where your ship is a bucket of bolts, and if it breaks, you have to stop flying and go fix it. And like those stories have more tension. You never wonder what's going to happen at the end of an episode of Star Trek, right?
No, but I do like Star Trek because they can do anything they choose to focus on the mind and like the human experience, or especially with like Data, which I always thought was very special about like Next Generation is was Data in particular.
Totally, me too.
Going through his experiences of life, they choose to focus on that, which is sort of like smaller than the Star Wars universe.
That's an interesting point. They both have very deep spiritual components to them, and it's kind of about perspective, right? Like, because the Star Wars spirituality is very like Taoist, universal in nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the big picture. And
Yeah.
the spiritual practice is to focus on the big picture, or not even focus. I guess focus is what you do when you use the Force, but it's like you open yourself to the big picture, like, you know, almost like the New Agey thing that I was saying. But it's not like Jedi get infinite powers. They're exhausted. They sometimes use it up completely and like disappear.
Yeah.
Or get, you know, if they go dark side, they get consumed by it. And so there is you said there's beauty in the finite. I feel like that's definitely an aspect of the sort of Zen answer to the New Age universe of infinite bounty, but there's also just the give and take, right? There's like karma, the cause and effect, like action and reaction. So you're not just bringing like infinite energy into the world. You're channeling energy from one
but
place to
you have to pick and choose. I mean, if I'm playing a video game. Wow, this is like the nerdiest conversation we've ever had.
It's true.
This is my true form. If I'm playing a video game, like, just because like maybe you have like all the options ahead of you, but you still have to pick and choose. You get to pick and choose which ones you're going to take.
Mm-hmm.
If you got to do all of them, I think that would be less exciting.
Totally.
But also, like, I'm choosing who I want to be in life and what I spend my time on, and I get to choose that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I could do it all, then that seems less personalized. It seems less like meaningful.
I have a friend. We're gonna stay totally sci-fi right now. But this is like more of a hypothetical, like a sort of scenario. Anyway, I have a friend with whom I have a lifelong disagreement about whether we would choose eternal life, like immortality, or not. Or it's not, with some of my friends, it's like an uploading consciousness to the cloud kind of version of the conversation. I don't even think that's possible. Like, I don't think that there is any
like in Black
technology.
Mirror.
Yeah, like I don't think that.
Well, I mean, it could probably like copy like a copy of your consciousness.
Yeah, but I think it would necessarily be like a downsampled weird simulation of it. Like, it wouldn't be you. I don't think. I mean, this is a Zen belief.
I just want to see that version of me, just to see it.
yeah, for sure. It would be fun to watch. But I mean, this is kind of like a Buddhist belief. Actually, it's like, I don't believe that the mind exists in a way that like scanning a human body and getting the data out of it could possibly transcribe. Like, I don't believe that's our nature. So I don't think there's anything to upload, you know. That would be the sort of
No, I agree with you.
way to say. But this is just about, with this friend that I'm talking about, this is just about like medical life extension. Like, would you want to live forever or not? And I have no desire.
Am I the only one living forever, or is everybody?
Well, yeah, there's the whole scenario thing. But I mean, what my friend says is that there's too much in the universe to see and explore and know. And I think there's also kind of a history component. It's like, he's very interested in the outcomes of history, like the long arc of history, and he wants to see it happen in one human life span. 80, 90 years, you know, if we're lucky, isn't enough to see it happen, except for a few lucky or unlucky generations, depending on what kind
but
of
you know, in the
history it is.
span of human history, we've actually seen quite a lot.
Yeah.
When you put it into perspective.
Yeah.
Like, we have seen 20% of the U.S. history.
You mean like us?
Yeah.
Like just the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. We're at a pretty pivotal moment. That contributes to my feeling about it. It's like, I've seen enough. You know what I mean? Like this is crazy.
Yeah, it's already a little terrifying.
Yeah. And
we've lived through a pandemic.
Totally. And that was enough, you know? Like, to live forever is to necessarily see many more of them.
Oh, absolutely.
And for me, though, there is that question that you immediately asked is a big part of it. It's like, I don't want to outlive everyone I know. I don't want to lose them all and have to like find whole new relationships. And, you know,
yeah,
I think that doesn't enter into it for this friend of mine. I think that he wants to see it for himself, and, you know, he'll do what it takes.
Because maybe they're just they're more interested in making new friendships or moving on, or maybe they just have that in them to be able to pick up and start over and be okay with that. Because you'd have to do that many a times.
Lot of times, yeah. I mean, there's some really good sci-fi that's about that. I'm thinking of Altered Carbon, which is a book, but there's a Netflix show too. The second season was I stopped watching after 5 minutes of the first episode of the second season. That's how bad it was. But the first season was great, and it's like about how crazy immortal billionaires go because they live so long, and that's the most interesting part of the sort of premise of the story. And that seems to me to be obvious. It seems like hard-coded that that's what would happen to human beings. Human beings don't seem...
They would make a lot of money.
Sure, yeah, because they've
just by living a long time.
Yes.
You put it in like an account
right.
and just let it sit.
Your savings account, yeah, totally. But the what happens to people when we get old is we start to lose it, and we find something else hopefully, but it's like it's hard to imagine, and I'm speaking from a place of total ignorance. It's not like I've gotten old before in this lifetime or whatever, but I can't imagine. I already feel like I'm losing my mind. Mm-hmm. I feel like I've lost my grip on reality already.
Oh yeah.
And that's
Did I
okay.
ever have a grip on reality? I'm not sure.
yeah, right. I mean, no. Well, I think what I mean is that by now it seems like the point of life is to let go of reality. So like I'm trying to get to lose my grip, because if I'm holding on too tight, it's going to be taken away from me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Right.
And that feels like what that immortality wish is all about, is just like holding on. And I can't imagine how crazy one would go holding on for that long. Like whatever we are, we don't seem capable of withstanding like 200 years of this.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't really think you would really need Buddhism in a way, because you wouldn't have the loss, and I think that's missing out.
Really like impermanence wouldn't exist.
Yeah, because it would be permanent.
Well, but everything. I mean, parts of it would. Many important problems that the Buddha was trying to solve would be solved without practice.
Yeah.
Because assuming your body is fine.
You just stay young or something like that.
Right. But what about all the things that come and go in your life? That feeling of...
So you'd still have to let those go.
Yeah.
But I still think you'd be missing out on a crucial part of life.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's no question that... And I have like a very privileged body. Like my body has been relatively easy to live in, and yet, what's happened to it as I've begun aging, I guess I would say, has taught me so much about... It's made me so much more tender and compassionate to just first have to be that way to myself, and then that just sort of changes my capacity to be that way with everyone and to understand where people are coming from, and to just stay like a rock solid 25-year-old forever. There's something that just seems like inherently heartless about that.
I mean, I think you gain a lot of things from losing things. I mean, I always felt that way. I've said many a times that I thought that lupus was the best thing that happened to me. And I mean, what I lost in physical capacity, I gained in like wisdom and just you prioritize, you work with your constraints. And you find something that was, even more meaningful and beautiful than what you had before. So I never really lost anything in a net sort of way.
You just brought it full circle in a really beautiful way that I want to ask you more about. Some constraints are imposed from outside, quote unquote, and some constraints are self-imposed. And maybe it's in some cases when you have no constraints, you have to impose constraints because we can't really act with like complete freedom we get paralyzed or something by.
I mean, who
by
doesn't have any constraints?
I guess I'm thinking about like in a specific domain, like a creative domain. Like you got a blank page in front of you, whether you're writing or drawing or designing or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. In those cases, I can definitely feel crippled.
And then in a way, life is like that from a certain perspective, right? Like, obviously there are tons of constraints. We can't fly, but, or like teleport or disappear or all these, there are all these rules on what we can do. But choice within those constraints, like the choice of what to do every moment, has this kind of unlimited quality. I mean, that's kind of what Zazen shows you, right? Is you can stop everything from happening except this like one particular infinity that is always happening. And you remove constraints from thinking, from moving and thinking, and sort of the conventional ways that we impose order on our life to sit zazen. And then you get up and you do what you need to do, but every one of those movements is a constraint on that you're imposing, right? Because when you sit, you are, at least in this one dimension or direction, you're an infinite being.
But sitting itself is almost like putting a constraint on yourself. Cause
well,
it's like sit in this one position.
It's true. It can feel really confining, but that's, I mean, it's like,
that's the thing, right? Because now you have that constraint. You're going to explore this area you've never explored before because that's your only option.
That's right. It's the creative constraint that you're describing, the very one that makes this exploration possible. But this is connecting back to this sort of new agey infinity, the new agey not real infinity that we were talking about. It's not, there is no like endless infinity in all directions. It's like it's give and take. It's, you have to constrain somewhere in order to unleash somewhere else. And this is just what choices are. It's like the responsibility of a living being to make choices, and a choice constrains every other possibility in the entire universe except the one that you chose. So that's just what freedom is. It's kind of paradoxical. I mean, the way the language, I mean, especially in a society like ours, we talk about freedom as this value, as this thing that matters more than anything else in the world. But all that freedom is the freedom to do exactly one thing at a time and not do every single one of the other things. Freedom is just the ability to choose the constraint.
Yeah. I love it.
I mean, there's you can imagine a sort of like very depressing existentialist version of that, where it's like we enslave ourselves to live in society or something. But that's actually ridiculous. It's like, it's not, there's no alternative. There's no, to consider yourself a slave to existing is to just impose that story on yourself, to relate to it as being stuck, having to
that's the constraint
choose.
You want.
Yeah. Well, sure, you're free to sort of relate to it however you want to, but as we know and as we learn and practice, some of those choices are the cause of suffering. And it's, I mean, maybe we can flip it around. Like the Buddhist attitude would be, it's your choice to suffer. Like this is I mean, this is a pretty Zen take.
I don't know about that.
Well, what I mean is,
kind of, but it also kind of sounds a little condescending.
Yes, it does. But but like I'm not a Zen master, right? Like I'm just an initiate like you. I can hear the voice of like the tough love teacher saying, "You're a Buddha. Your choice to not be a Buddha is a Buddha's choice, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that the other piece that's not there in that, and when it sounds like that, is the compassion that you have to have for yourself.
Right.
And
I
for
mean,
others.
I think when you say like life is dukkha, it's going to the part where we're all going to experience this, so we have to accept it. But part of that is showing compassion and being like, sort of validating people's experiences that they are suffering, regardless of what they are.
A friend of mine gave a really beautiful image of the bodhisattva path that I hadn't really thought about. I don't think in terms of karma very explicitly very much. It seems like a kind of old school attitude, not too far off from the kinds of religious moral concepts that we both sort of turned off from pretty early. But, of course, there are more nuanced ways of understanding it. It's like just cause and effect, really. It's a thing that's ordinary.
Oh, but by the way, my name. My name, my Dharma name.
Yeah.
Inga.
Yeah, I don't even know what it means now.
It means cause and effect, just one.
Ooh. Yeah. Okay.
I knew that would come up at some point. I just didn't want to force it in there.
Well, there it is. We got there. It's continuous, right? It's not like you make a choice and that alters the karma of the universe. It's all one long cause and effect, I think, is what that means, right? And
I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I guess who knows.
But I like that interpretation too.
I think leaving it as who knows is a good idea. But the image that my friend gave me about the bodhisattva is that the bodhisattva, it's not just about like refusing enlightenment in order to save all beings. It's more specific. It's like creating, like Buddha nature doesn't create karma, right? That's what we say. Like creating karma is a thing that you do when you're entangled in the web of karma. And so to be a Buddha is to not leave a trace in the world, right? But to be a bodhisattva is to leave a trace in the world in order to help others. So the bodhisattva is making this choice to create karma, to sort of like shake the net, or like, untangle the net that other beings are trapped in, and that traps them. And the choice to leave a mark on the world becomes this compassionate action. And that's you can believe, if you want to, that like we're capable of transcending the entire universe by just meditating really hard and getting out, escaping. But if you don't believe that, or if you don't yet have evidence that that is possible, what alternative is there but to just keep creating karma, but doing it for others? So it is a choice. It is a constraint. You're constraining your Buddhahood in order to be in the world with people. But they're kind of it seems like a better idea.
It does seem like a better idea. I mean, and I have I've personally benefited from people who I feel are bodhisattvas, whether they practice Zen Buddhism or not. I feel like they exist, when they've sort of made this decision to do that. Like Fred Rogers. I feel like he was a bodhisattva.
Yeah.
And Adrienne Mishler from Yoga from Adrienne. She's just a wonderful teacher, and I just feel like she's dedicated her life to kind of like spreading this sort of karma, like you said. And I think there's just nothing more beautiful. Those are the types of people I look up to more than anyone. And I'm just like, what higher, life path is there?
And one of the key things, I mean, like Mr. Rogers is a perfect example of this. One of the key things about like a real bodhisattva, John Lewis, the late Congressman John Lewis, is one of the examples that comes up in my world all the time as an example of a modern American bodhisattva. And there's so many. We can think of so many if we just sat here and tried. But let's just stick with Mr. Rogers. The thing about Mr. Rogers that's so obviously bodhisattva nature is that he's for everyone.
Yeah.
That you don't look at Mr. Rogers and say like he's a Christian or he's a, I don't know, a Quaker or he's a Buddhist or something. He's just Mr. Rogers. And there's no containing what he did in symbols and dogmas and rituals. I mean, the rituals of Mr. Rogers are just like saying hi to people, right?
Yeah.
and like getting to know the mailman.
That you're happy that they're your neighbor.
Yeah.
And I think that's like such a nice thing to say, that I'm just happy you're here.
Householders is a production of the Atlanta Soto Zen Center in Atlanta, Georgia, and the Silent Thunder Order. Find us on the web at ASZC.org.
Our Sangha depends on your support. You can donate by PayPal to donate at storder.org. Gasho.